In the small but vibrant town of Ukpana, nestled within the rolling hills of the Edo Kingdom, Osei lived a simple life with her family. Despite their modest means, they carried a rich legacy. Among their most treasured possessions was a necklace made of intricate coral beads, passed down through generations. On the morning of the annual cultural day at Ukpana Academy, Osei's mother handed her the necklace with reverence. "Wear this with pride," her mother said. "It carries the blessings of our ancestors." Osei hesitated, aware of how the world viewed her, just a carpenter's daughter. But her mother's insistence and the weight of tradition compelled her. When she arrived at school, heads turned. The bright red coral beads shimmered in the sun, and whispers filled the air. Her classmates were used to seeing Osei in plain clothing, not adorned with something so striking. Among the admirers was Osazuwa, a charming boy whose attention sent ripples of jealousy through another, Ivy bore, the daughter of a wealthy merchant. Ivy, who prided herself on having the best of everything, could not stand to see someone like Osei outshine her. Ivybor clenched her fists as she watched Osazuwa compliment Osei. "Your necklace is beautiful," he said, his voice tinged with genuine admiration. Osei's shy smile was enough to spark a fire in Ivy's chest. The necklace wasn't just an accessory. It was a symbol of something Ivy could not buy: heritage, authenticity, and pride. As the day unfolded, Ivy's envy grew unbearable. She overheard her friends gossiping about how the necklace suited Osei better than any of Ivy's lavish jewelry. The thought infuriated her. How dare she take what's mine? Ivy thought, though Osei had taken nothing but unintentional attention. That evening, Ivy hatched a plan. She approached Ago, a quiet but opportunistic classmate, offering him money to borrow the necklace. "She doesn't deserve it," Ivy whispered, her words dripping with malice. Ago hesitated, but the lure of Ivy's bribe was too tempting to resist. The following day, Ivy's plan began to unfold. She cornered Ago in a quiet hallway before classes started, pressing a wad of crisp Naira notes into his hand. "Make sure it disappears during recess," she instructed, her voice cold and demanding. Ago nodded hesitantly, glancing nervously around the corridor. Despite his reluctance, he couldn't resist the allure of the money. For someone like him, who struggled to afford lunch at times, Ivy's offer was a small fortune. Meanwhile, Osei walked through the halls, her head held high, unaware of the brewing storm. The heirloom necklace, snug around her neck, made her feel closer to her family's history. As she entered her classroom, she noticed Ivy watching her, a strange glint in her eyes. Osei ignored it, focusing instead on her upcoming presentation for Cultural Day. Recess soon arrived, and Osei left her seat, joining her friends in the courtyard. It was during this time that Ago slipped into action. With careful precision, he approached her desk and pried open her bag, tucking the necklace into his pocket. His heart raced as he left the room, unsure if he could follow through with the deceit. When Osei returned to the classroom, she immediately noticed something was wrong. Her bag, which she had neatly arranged before leaving, was slightly ajar. Her heart sank as she reached inside and found the necklace missing. Panic set in as she rummaged through her belongings, hoping she had misplaced it. "Where is it?" she whispered to herself, her voice trembling. The heirloom was not just a piece of jewelry, it was a piece of her identity. The commotion caught the attention of the other students, and soon the entire class was buzzing with speculation. "Did she lose it?" someone whispered. "Or was it stolen?" another added. Ivy feigned concern, stepping forward with mock sympathy. "Osei, are you sure you didn't drop it somewhere?" she asked, her tone laced with insincerity. Osei's eyes narrowed, sensing something off in Ivy's demeanor, but she said nothing. As the headmistress was called to address the matter, Ivy exchanged a knowing glance with Ago. The plan was working perfectly, or so they thought. The headmistress arrived shortly after, her presence commanding silence in the classroom. "What's the issue here?" she asked, her sharp gaze scanning the room. Osei stood nervously, her voice barely above a whisper as she explained the missing necklace. "It's my family heirloom, ma'am. It's gone." The headmistress frowned and ordered a search of the classroom. The students began opening bags and desks, some with genuine curiosity, others with thinly veiled amusement. Meanwhile, Osei's closest friends, F and Agbon, watched Ivy closely. F nudged Agbon and whispered, "She looks too calm for someone who claims to be worried." Agbon nodded in agreement, his eyes narrowing. "She's definitely hiding something." The search continued, but the necklace was nowhere to be found. Osei's stomach churned as she realized how easily suspicion could turn on her. Ivybor, however, played her role well, offering meaningless reassurances to Osei. "Don't worry," she said with a falsely sweet smile. "I'm sure we'll find it soon." Her calm demeanor struck F as strange. "If it were my necklace," F muttered to Agbon, "I'd be more upset. Why is she acting like she knows something we don't?" As the day dragged on, Ago began to feel the weight of his actions. His conscience pricked at him as he watched Osei's distraught expression. That evening, when Ivy approached him with more money to ensure his silence, he hesitated. "You already paid me for the job," he said uneasily. Ivy's eyes narrowed, and she leaned in closer. "And I'm paying you to keep quiet. Don't forget what's at stake for you." Unbeknownst to them, Agbon had been lurking nearby, curious about Ivy's strange behavior. He heard enough of their conversation to piece together what had happened. Quietly slipping away, Agbon found F and shared what he had overheard. "She paid him to steal the necklace," Agbon whispered, his voice laced with urgency. "We need to figure out how to prove it." Osei, meanwhile, sat at home, staring at her empty hands. The absence of the necklace felt like a gaping hole in her heart. Her mother noticed her distress and placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "The truth always comes to light," she said softly. Little did Osei know, her friends were already working to uncover that truth. It was during the school's weekly assembly that the tension finally broke. The headmistress, a formidable woman with an air of authority, stepped onto the platform. "I have been informed of an alarming incident that tarnishes the values we hold dear at this academy," she began, her sharp gaze scanning the students. "The theft of Osei's heirloom necklace is not just a personal loss but a stain on our community's honor." F and Agbon, sitting near the back of the assembly hall, exchanged a glance. They had spent the night strategizing and were now ready to act. The two friends had decided it was time to confront Ago with what they knew. If he confessed, they could finally clear Osei's name. As the assembly ended, they approached Ago near the water pump behind the school. Agbon wasted no time. "We know you stole the necklace," he said bluntly. Ago's face turned pale, his eyes darting nervously. "I don't know what you're talking about," he mumbled, backing away. But F stepped forward, her voice calm yet firm. "We saw you with Osarv yesterday. We know you gave him the necklace to hide. Do you think Ivy will protect you when this blows up? She's the one who dragged you into this mess, and she'll leave you to face the consequences alone." Ago froze, the weight of their words sinking in. He looked around to ensure no one else was listening before whispering, "If I tell you everything, will you promise not to involve my family? They don't know about this." F nodded, though she kept her fingers crossed behind her back. Under the shade of the large baobab tree behind the school, Ago spilled everything. "Ivy paid me to steal the necklace," he admitted, his voice trembling. "She couldn't stand how much attention Osei was getting, especially from Osazuwa. She said no one would suspect me because I keep to myself." F folded her arms, anger flashing in her eyes. "And you just went along with it? Do you realize what you've done to Osei? That necklace isn't just jewelry. It's part of her family's history. I didn't want to." Ago snapped, his voice rising before he lowered it again. "But she threatened me. Said she'd tell everyone about my debts if I didn't help her. And now I'm stuck?" He glanced at Agbon, who was unusually silent, his jaw clenched. "Osaru still has the necklace," Ago continued, "but he won't give it back without a fight." Agbon finally spoke, his voice steady and determined. "You're going to help us get it back. If you don't, we'll take this straight to the headmistress and let her deal with you and Ivy." Ago nodded reluctantly, the weight of his choices pressing heavily on his shoulders. As the three of them walked back to the schoolyard, F and Agbon exchanged a look of triumph. The truth was finally within reach, and Osei would soon be vindicated. The next afternoon, Agbon and Ago ventured into the small forest behind the school where Osara usually lingered. The air was heavy with tension, and Ago's steps faltered as they neared their destination. "He's not someone you mess with," Ago muttered, his voice laced with fear. "Good thing we're not here to mess with him," Agbon said confidently. "We're here to take back what doesn't belong to him." As they approached, Osaru sat under a tree, flipping a small knife in his hand. He looked up lazily, his expression darkening as he recognized Ago. "What are you doing here again?" he growled. Before Ago could stammer a reply, Agbon stepped forward. "We know you have the necklace. Hand it over, and we'll walk away." Osara's eyes narrowed, and he let out a low chuckle. "You think you can just demand something from me? Who do you think you are?" F stepped in, her voice calm but firm. "It doesn't belong to you, Osaru. If you return it now, we won't report you to the headmistress or the elders." The mention of the elders made Osaru pause. His reputation as a troublemaker already teetered on the edge of acceptability, and he knew the elders' involvement could lead to harsh consequences. Still, he wasn't ready to give in so easily. "And if I don't?" he sneered. Agbon stepped closer, his voice steady. "If you don't, everyone will know you were involved in stealing a family heirloom. Do you think Ivy will protect you? She's the one who set all this up, and she'll throw you under the bus the moment things get serious." Osara's grip on his knife tightened as he studied Agbon. He wasn't used to being challenged, especially not by schoolchildren. For a moment, it seemed like he might lash out. But then his gaze shifted to Ago, who stood trembling behind F and Agbon. "Fine," Osaru finally said, his tone begrudging. He reached into his satchel and pulled out the coral necklace, its beads gleaming in the sunlight. "Take it, but don't think this makes us even," he snarled, tossing it toward Agbon. Agbon caught the necklace, relief washing over him as he examined it. It was intact, just as Osei had described. "We're done here," he said, his voice firm. Without another word, the three of them turned and walked away, their hearts pounding. As they exited the forest, F glanced back at Ago. "Now, it's time for you to come clean to the headmistress. You owe that much to Osei." Ago nodded reluctantly, knowing his moment of reckoning had arrived. The truth was out, but the hardest part was still to come: exposing Ivy and making amends. The next morning, F, Agbon, and Ago approached the headmistress's office. Osei, still unaware of their efforts, sat alone in the classroom, her head bowed in sorrow. The headmistress listened intently as Ago recounted the entire scheme, his voice trembling with guilt. "I didn't mean to hurt anyone," he said, tears welling in his eyes. "I was just scared, and Ivy, she made it hard to say no." The headmistress's stern expression softened only slightly. "You've done the right thing by coming forward. That takes courage. But this matter isn't over yet. Ivy will need to answer for her actions." With the necklace in hand, the headmistress called for an emergency assembly. The students gathered, buzzing with curiosity. Osei looked up, startled, as her name was called to the front. The headmistress held up the coral necklace, and gasps rippled through the crowd. This necklace, a symbol of heritage and pride, was stolen, the headmistress announced. And now, the truth has come to light. All eyes turned to Ivy as Ago stepped forward to reveal her role in the theft. Her face drained of color, and she stammered, I didn't mean for things to go this far." But her excuses fell on deaf ears. The headmistress condemned her actions, explaining how jealousy and deceit had caused unnecessary pain. When the assembly ended, Osei held the necklace close, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you," she whispered to F and Agbon, who smiled back warmly. Ivybor, however, faced a harsh punishment. The headmistress suspended her from school for several weeks and required her to apologize publicly to Osei. The once proud girl was humbled, her reputation tarnished. In the days that followed, Osei's confidence grew. Her classmates, once hesitant to approach her, now admired her resilience. Osazuwa, the boy at the center of Ivy's jealousy, expressed his admiration openly. "You've shown real strength, Osei," he said one afternoon, his smile genuine. As for Ago, he worked to rebuild trust, offering sincere apologies and small acts of kindness to Osei. She forgave him, understanding that he too had been a victim of Ivy's manipulations. The heirloom necklace, once a source of conflict, became a symbol of unity. Osei wore it proudly on special occasions, a reminder of her family's history and her own strength. And though the scars of betrayal remained, they served as a powerful lesson for everyone at Ukpana Academy. Envy and deceit could never outshine the truth. The story of the heirloom necklace spread beyond the school, inspiring others in the Edo Kingdom to value honesty and heritage. As Osei looked toward the future, she knew she would always carry the legacy of her ancestors with her, both in her heart and around her neck.